Beneath the frozen silence of the Arctic, where the wind carves ghostly hymns across endless white, lie secrets untouched since the dawn of human memory. Buried in crystal, sealed in darkness, and preserved by ice, are caves that have never known the warmth of light. To step inside is to trespass into time itself, into vaults where nature has written history in frozen glass, and where echoes of forgotten worlds whisper against cavern walls. Tonight, we descend into those chambers of silence, but tread carefully, because some secrets were never meant to be disturbed. Before we begin this descent into the deep, if the story moves you, let your curiosity guide you. Like, share, and subscribe, so this journey may continue together. The Arctic does not announce itself. It arrives in silence, in a whiteness so pure it blinds the eyes and bends the mind into disbelief. From a distance, it looks empty, a vast sheet of nothingness stretched across the horizon. But step upon its surface, and you feel the weight of its presence pressing down, as though the land itself carries the burden of eternity. The first thing you notice is the stillness. It is not the stillness of a quiet forest, or the pause of a windless night. It is heavier, denser, as though the very air has forgotten how to move. Sound does not carry here the way it does elsewhere. Voices fall flat. The crunch of snow beneath your boots feels swallowed before it can echo. The silence is not absence, it is presence, a living force that hangs above you, around you, inside you. It gnaws at your sense of scale, until you cannot tell where the sky ends and the earth begins. Above, the sky is pale, stretched thin over the frozen world like skin over bone. Sometimes it glows blue, other times it fades into a sheet of gray, but always it looms with the same hollow weight. Clouds crawl slowly across it, dragging their shadows across the tundra, as though the heavens themselves move reluctantly over this desolate land. The sun, when it appears, does not rise. It hovers, fragile, and low, spilling light that feels weak, as though it has traveled too far and lost its strength along the way. The land beneath is a white desert, an ocean frozen mid-wave. Ridges of snow roll endlessly, dunes sculpted by winds that never rest. They are soft in appearance but merciless in touch, for beneath their fragile skin of powder lies ice as hard as iron. Each step is a negotiation. The cold does not merely bite, it invades. It seeps through boots, gloves, layers of fabric, and burrows straight into the marrow. Skin numbs, breath crystallizes in the air, and even thought itself begins to slow beneath the siege of frost. Yet there is a strange beauty here, a beauty that terrifies as much as it mesmerizes. The wind becomes an artist, chiseling and shaping the land with invisible hands. Snowdrifts rise into twisted sculptures. Ice crusts shimmer under the faint light, each flake catching a fleeting glimmer before disappearing back into shadow. At times, when the sun strikes at the right angle, the snowfields ignite into blinding silver seas, dazzling yet merciless to the eyes that dare to look too long. But beauty, in the Arctic, is never gentle. It hides its cruelty within its allure. What looks soft can swallow you whole. What looks solid may collapse beneath your weight. The white silence holds no sympathy for those who misstep. It is indifferent, not cruel by intention, but by design. Life here is a fragile negotiation with forces older and stronger than humanity. Imagine standing alone in this endless expanse. No bird song, no flowing rivers, no trees rustling with the wind. Only the hollow whistle of air dragging itself across ice. You realize then that silence has a sound, a low, humming pressure that fills the skull, reminding you of your solitude. Here, man is reduced to scale, a mere flicker against the ancient breath of the earth. For centuries, explorers described this silence with awe and dread. Some wrote of it as a cathedral, a place so immense it forced reverence. Others feared it as a grave, an endless shroud where time itself lay buried. Both were right. The Arctic is both sanctuary and tomb, offering clarity in its purity and peril in its emptiness. And yet, humans keep returning, drawn to the edges of the world, lured by the promise of untouched beauty, of secrets locked away in the frozen earth. Every gust of wind whispers that those secrets are close, hidden beneath the white silence, waiting for the brave or the foolish to disturb them. The silence is not empty. It is a veil. And beneath it, the first doors to the crystal ice caves are waiting. The Arctic stretches outward like a dream you cannot wake from, endless, shifting, always just beyond your grasp. At first glance, it seems motionless, frozen in time. But if you linger, if you stand long enough to let the cold settle into your bones, you begin to notice the truth. This land is never still. The silence is alive. The wind is its heartbeat, invisible yet relentless. It scrapes across the tundra with icy claws, carving new lines into the snow each day, erasing yesterday's footprints as though no one had ever walked here at all. What seems eternal is, in truth, constantly remade. The Arctic is not a frozen grave, but a living canvas, one that shifts with each gust, each flake, each hour of pale light. There are moments when the wind stills and the world feels suspended. In that pause, you can hear your own body like never before. The rush of blood in your ears, the creak of fabric against your skin, the sound of your breath breaking into steam. These small noises grow enormous in the absence of everything else, as if the land itself is listening, weighing whether you belong here. And then, without warning, the silence is broken. A groan rolls across the ice, deep and resonant, as though the earth itself is speaking. Somewhere far in the distance, the glacier shifts. Cracks splinter through the frozen skin of the world, echoing like the cracking of glass. The noise travels for miles, rising and fading in ghostly tones, before dissolving once more into stillness. It is a reminder that beneath the calm, power sleeps. And when it stirs, it does so with a force no human can withstand. The white silence is only the beginning, the threshold that tests, humbles, and prepares. Beyond it, the frozen vaults of time await. The descent is about to begin. The silence of the Arctic is only a surface, a skin stretched tight over something deeper. Beneath the endless snowfields, beneath the ridges of ice that roll like frozen seas, lie hidden chambers, the vaults of time. They are not marked on any map. They do not reveal themselves to the casual wanderer. To find them is to stumble upon a secret the earth has guarded for thousands of years. The entrance often appears as nothing more than a crack in the glacier, a shadow too dark against the snow, a slit carved by the pressure of shifting ice. To approach is to feel a strange pull, as if the land itself is inviting you or warning you. At first, the gap seems too narrow, too insignificant. Yet step closer, and you realize it breathes cold, a colder air than the frigid world outside. This breath is ancient. It carries the weight of ages, the scent of minerals and frozen dust, the faint trace of a world that has not touched sunlight since before humanity's first words. Crossing the threshold is like trespassing. The white silence gives way to black silence, a darkness so complete it seems alive. Light from the outside world falters and dies, swallowed by the ice. Only when a lamp or torch flickers to life do the walls reveal themselves. Not stone, but glass, sculpted over millennia. The walls shimmer with blue, green, and silver veins, like the veins of a living creature. Some places gleam with crystalline purity, sharp as shattered mirrors. Others hold cloudy depths, layers upon layers of frozen time pressed into the glacier's heart. Each step inward is a step backward through history. The caves are not merely hollows carved by water and cold. They are archives. The ice has trapped bubbles of air older than civilizations, tiny orbs that once belonged to skies no human ever breathed. Encased within are whispers of climates that rose and fell, of storms that raged before pyramids pierced the desert sky, of seasons that passed while continents shifted silently. To touch these walls is to lay your hand upon memory itself. The caves stretch unpredictably. Some tunnels narrow until you must crawl on your stomach, your breath fogging against ceilings only inches from your face. Others open suddenly into vast chambers, cathedrals of ice where stalactites hang like glass fangs and the floor glitters with frozen rivers. The air inside is different, heavier, drier, sharper against the lungs. It feels older, as if each breath taken here is a communion with something beyond time. And then there are the sounds. In the stillness, every drop of water becomes a drumbeat. The slow drip echoes endlessly, ringing through the tunnels like a clock marking centuries instead of seconds. Sometimes the ice itself groans, shifting with a deep, resonant rumble that vibrates through the chest. These are not random noises. They are reminders that the caves are alive, not static monuments, but moving bodies of frozen water, always changing, always pressing forward with the weight of the glacier above. Explorers often describe the sensation of being watched, not by animals, not by men, but by the ice itself. The crystalline walls seem to hold eyes, trapped air bubbles staring like frozen pupils, cracks spreading like veins beneath translucent skin. Shine a light across them, and the reflections scatter wildly, dancing across the chamber until you cannot tell where the real walls end and the illusions begin. It is easy to believe, in these vaults, that the ice is conscious, that it remembers, that it has been waiting for you. And perhaps it has. For within these vaults are not only records of the earth, but relics. In deeper chambers, explorers have found the remains of ancient forests, splintered roots encased in glassy layers, their wood hardened into stone by pressure and cold. In other places, insects lie frozen in perfect detail, wings fragile, eyes intact, as if they had paused mid-flight and never resumed. To gaze upon them is to see life stolen from time, preserved with a precision no human hand could replicate. Each discovery is a reminder. The caves are not inert. They are keepers, guardians of what the world has forgotten. And what they keep is more than beauty. They hold warnings, stories of climate shifting, of extinctions already written in the ice. The vaults are both museum and prophecy, their frozen walls whispering of worlds that rose and worlds that fell. Stepping deeper, you cannot help but wonder, what else lies hidden in the dark, waiting to be revealed when the ice finally yields? The further you descend, the more the caves feel less like passages and more like sanctuaries. The walls grow thicker, the air colder, the silence sharper. Light bends strangely here, scattering across the facets of ice until it seems the chamber itself glows from within. At times, the glow is so faint it feels like starlight, as though you are walking beneath frozen constellations embedded in the glacier. Everywhere, the weight of time presses in. You see it in the strata of ice, bands of color running like rings of a tree trunk. Each band is a season, a year, a storm remembered and locked away. Thin, delicate lines mark quiet winters. Thick, murky streaks tell of volcanic eruptions that once blackened skies across the earth. The deeper the layers go, the further back they reach. Centuries, millennia, entire ages catalogued in silence. To look upon these walls is to see history not as words or ruins, but as frozen breath, as memory solidified into crystal. It is easy, in such a place, to believe the ice has intention, that it chose to preserve, to keep, to guard. For what else explains the precision? Why else would a leaf remain whole, a wing unbroken, a fragment of bone suspended in perfect stillness? The caves are not careless collectors. They are deliberate archivists, keeping what time would otherwise destroy. And in doing so, they remind us of a truth both haunting and humbling. Nothing is ever truly gone. Yet not everything the ice reveals is beautiful. Some chambers are unsettling. Shapes half seen within the cloudy depths, indistinct, distorted, almost human. Explorers wrote of these with unease, their lamps flickering across forms that looked like faces, hollow-eyed and watching. Most were tricks of shadow and fracture, but the effect lingered. For if the ice could hold a flower, an insect, a beast, could it not also hold us? Could it not, somewhere in its frozen belly, cradle the remnants of those who came before and never returned? There are stories of such discoveries. A frozen figure, curled in sleep-like repose, hair still intact, clothing stiffened into brittle shrouds. The cold preserves even flesh, halting decay, locking the body in a cruel imitation of life. To gaze upon such a sight is to confront mortality with unbearable clarity, to see yourself reflected not in ice, but in the fate it promises. Here, the line between preservation and entombment vanishes. The vaults do not discriminate. They keep what they are given. The Arctic is a paradox of vastness and confinement. On one hand, the horizon stretches forever, a line so far away it seems to bend into infinity. On the other, the weight of the sky presses down, flattening everything beneath it. The air feels thinner, harsher, stripped of softness. Even breathing becomes an act of endurance, each inhale sharp, each exhale fragile against the cold. You begin to feel as though you are not walking on land at all, but moving across a thin film separating you from something older, deeper, and endlessly patient. Shadows here are strange. When the sun lingers low, they stretch across the snow like black rivers, long and distorted. They slither across the ground, pointing to nowhere, dissolving into the pale brightness around them. There is no place to hide from the gaze of this landscape. The Arctic exposes everything. Every sound, every step, every breath feels magnified against its canvas of silence. And yet hidden in this merciless openness are whispers of life. A single white fox may dart across the snow, pause silent as it vanishes into the drifts. A raven's shadow may flicker overhead, its call slicing through the air before being swallowed by the cold. Even the rare prints of a wandering bear pressed into the ice remind you that this world, though severe, is not empty. Life persists here, small, cautious, adapted. But it is life that obeys the rules of the silence. For those who dare to explore, the silence becomes both companion and adversary. It strips away distraction, sharpening the senses, forcing the mind inward. Alone, surrounded by infinite white, thoughts begin to echo, memories sharpen, regrets return. The Arctic has a way of unraveling the human spirit, pulling loose the threads until only truth remains. Perhaps this is why so many who have stood here describe visions, not of angels or demons, but of themselves, seen more clearly than ever before. It is easy to imagine, in such a place, that you are the first to stand here, that no one has ever left footprints on this untouched snow. Yet beneath your boots may lie centuries of hidden trails, the ghost paths of explorers, the migrations of forgotten tribes, the tracks of animals that no longer roam the earth. Time in the Arctic is layered, compacted like the ice itself, pressing history down until it becomes part of the land. And just as the land guards its past, so too does it conceal its hidden chambers. Somewhere beneath this ocean of white, the caves wait, caught in the folds of ancient glaciers, sealed behind walls of glass-hard ice. They have endured undisturbed for thousands of years. Their entrances are small, nearly invisible, tucked into cracks and shadows where only the most patient eyes would notice. Yet they are there, concealed beneath the weight of silence, keeping their secrets intact. The white silence is not merely an introduction. It is a gatekeeper. To pass through is to earn the right to go further, to step into the darker depths where secrets wait. Only those who endure the silence, who let it hollow them out without breaking, may continue. Beyond this stillness lies the threshold into a world even stranger, where the frozen breath of ages whispers from walls of crystal. And that world is calling. There is a moment when the Arctic fully surrounds you that the mind begins to blur the line between dream and waking. The whiteness is so complete, the silence so profound that you lose track of time itself. Minutes stretch into hours, hours collapse into seconds, and you begin to wonder if the land is not merely endless, but timeless. Here, past and present dissolve into the same eternal now. The explorers who came before often described hallucinations. They spoke of mirages shimmering on the horizon, cities of ice rising from the snow, frozen ships trapped in crystalline seas, even the shapes of people moving just out of reach. These visions were born not of madness, but of the land itself. Light bends strangely in the Arctic. The air is so cold, so heavy, that it twists and refracts the sun's rays, creating illusions that taunt the eye. A wall of ice may look like a fortress. A distant ridge may appear as an open passage. And sometimes the snow itself seems to breathe, shifting in ways the mind struggles to explain. But the true hallucination is the silence. Prolonged exposure to it begins to play tricks. In the absence of sound, the brain invents its own. A faint ringing in the ears becomes a melody. A crack in the ice becomes a whisper. Some swear they heard voices calling their names, though no one was there. Others spoke of phantom footsteps, of laughter buried in the wind. The Arctic does not need monsters or spirits. The silence itself becomes both. And yet, in this strangeness, there is a strange kind of peace. Few places on Earth offer such purity. The snow here is untouched by soot, the air free from the stench of cities, the sky unscarred by towers or smoke. The silence is not only absence, but also freedom. Freedom from the noise of the world, from the weight of time, from the relentless march of human ambition. For a fleeting moment, you glimpse the earth as it once was, before fire and stone and steel. It is a purity that humbles. Still, purity comes with a price. The Arctic tests without warning. A storm can rise from nowhere, sweeping across the tundra with blinding fury. Snow that once seemed gentle becomes a weapon, lashing across exposed skin like shards of glass. Winds howl so violently they drown out thought, erasing every trace of direction. The land that looked flat becomes a labyrinth of white walls, each step forward indistinguishable from the last. To lose your way here is not difficult. It is inevitable, unless you carry the silence within you as a guide. Survival demands surrender. The body must bend to the cold, not fight it. Movement must become deliberate, every choice weighed against exhaustion. Even breath must be managed carefully, for to gasp too deeply is to invite ice into the lungs. In this way, the Arctic teaches humility. It strips away arrogance, reminding you that strength alone is not enough. Only patience, endurance, and respect will open the path forward. And when the storm passes, as suddenly as it began, the land returns to silence as though nothing had happened. The snow smooths over the violence, erasing every mark. Once again the horizon gleams, unbroken, untouched, eternal. You stand there, a small figure in an ocean of white, and realize how fleeting you are. The silence does not care for your passage. It will remain long after your footprints vanish. Yet even in its indifference, the Arctic offers something rare, a doorway. For beneath this silence, beneath this weight of snow and wind, lie the caves. They are not obvious, not welcoming. They hide in shadows at the base of ice cliffs, in narrow fissures carved by centuries of pressure, in cracks that seem too small to lead anywhere at all. And yet, for those who endure the silence long enough, for those who earn the right to enter, the openings reveal themselves. To step into one is to leave the silence behind, but not entirely. The hush of the Arctic follows you inward, seeping into the tunnels, pressing against the walls of ice. And there, for the first time, the silence begins to speak. It speaks in drips of water echoing like distant bells, in the shifting groan of glaciers moving above, in the breath of frozen air trapped for thousands of years. The silence does not end at the caves. It deepens. The silence here is heavier still, weighted by knowledge. It becomes difficult to speak, as though words might fracture the air, disturb what was never meant to be disturbed. Even whispers sound sacrilegious. And in that silence, the imagination grows restless. What lies beyond the reach of your light? What stirs in the depths where no human has yet walked? Could there be vaults within vaults, chambers untouched since the birth of glaciers, holding secrets older than mankind itself? It is in such moments that awe becomes fear. Not fear of the ice collapsing, or of losing your way, though those dangers are real, but fear of knowing too much. For every frozen relic is a reminder of impermanence. The leaf preserved is from a tree long dead. The insect flawless in form belongs to a species perhaps extinct. The bones are from creatures erased by time's indifference. And even as the ice preserves, it warns, all things end. Even you. Still, curiosity compels deeper descent. Human history is a constant reaching into darkness, seeking light. And in the frozen vaults, there is much to be learned about the Earth's climate, about extinction, about survival. But beyond science, there is something more profound. To stand in these caves is to confront the enormity of time itself, to feel the thinness of one's own existence against the breadth of ages. It is a lesson written not in ink, but in frozen silence. Eventually, the tunnels narrow again. The great chambers give way to tight passages, twisting corridors that force the body to crawl, to squeeze, to bow in humility before the ice. These are the thresholds leading deeper still, into places where the air grows so old it burns the lungs, where the walls close in like a coffin, and where the silence feels absolute. And there, in those claustrophobic depths, the vaults take on another character. No longer merely archives, they become something else. They begin to whisper, not with voices, but with echoes. The drip of water magnified into a heartbeat, the shifting of glaciers like distant thunder, the groan of pressure like a warning too vast to comprehend. The ice has kept its secrets for millennia. But the deeper you go, the clearer it becomes. Some secrets are not waiting to be found. They are waiting to be left alone. The vaults of time are not merely wonders. They are thresholds, doors leading into a darkness where the past lingers, restless, unwilling to release its hold. And beyond those doors, the whispers begin. There are places in the world where silence is complete, where sound seems swallowed whole by the weight of stone or snow. But within the frozen caves of the Arctic, silence does not mean absence. It means presence. It means listening. For beneath the stillness of the ice, there are whispers, faint, elusive, like voices carried on a breath that isn't your own. At first, you think it is imagination. The hiss of air escaping through cracks, the subtle trickle of meltwater winding its way through narrow veins. But linger long enough in the cold, long enough with your lamp trembling against the black, and the noises take on shape. They gather rhythm. They sound like language. Not words you recognize, not speech you could write down, but something close enough to unsettle. Something close enough to make you wonder if the cave itself is trying to speak. Explorers have described the sensation with unease. The way drips echo like footsteps, the way gusts of shifting air resemble sighs. Some wrote of entire nights spent awake, convinced they were not alone, though no living creature stirred in the cavern. Others spoke of disembodied tones, as though the walls themselves carried memory. Was it the ice shifting? Or was it something older, more intentional, hidden within the glacier's voice? Science explained some of it. Ice moves even when it seems frozen. It expands and contracts, grinds and groans under pressure, producing sounds both high and low, from cracks like rifle fire to hums deep as a cathedral organ. Water drips, flows, freezes again, creating hollow notes that reverberate endlessly through the tunnels. To the rational ear, these are natural phenomena, nothing more. And yet, to stand within those corridors is to doubt rationality. The sounds do not echo aimlessly. They cling. They circle. They wait. At times, they resemble laughter, thin and distant, bouncing back from unseen chambers. At other times, they come as whispers close to the ear, too sudden and sharp to be dismissed as accidents of acoustics. Alone in that darkness, your breath visible, your heartbeat loud, it becomes impossible to shake the feeling that something is watching, and worse, that it wants to be heard. Some of the whispers carry stories, at least in the minds of those who heard them. Inuit elders told tales of spirits caught in the ice, voices of ancestors who became one with the glaciers. The caves, they believed, were not lifeless at all, but dwellings of souls, keepers of knowledge, protectors of secrets. To wander too far into their depths without respect was to risk awakening forces older than memory. These whispers were not tricks of air, but messages, warnings, or perhaps invitations. There is something deeply human about assigning voice to the unknown. Yet in these caves, it does not feel like imagination. The whispers arrive unbidden, unshaped by expectation. They come in the dark when your light falters and the cold gnaws at bone when you are most vulnerable. They do not feel like inventions. They feel like intrusions. Some explorers return from these journeys changed. Hardened men spoke of trembling at shadows, of hearing voices long after leaving the ice. A few refused to enter caves again, claiming the whispers had followed them, faint at first, then louder, growing into nightmares that would not end. Most dismissed them as hallucinations bred from exhaustion, from hypothermia, from the crushing weight of isolation, but not all. Some insisted the whispers were real, that the ice itself remembers, that it speaks. And perhaps it does, for ice is not just frozen water. It is a vessel, a body that absorbs, that records. Within it, bubbles of ancient air remain trapped, carrying atmospheres that no human has breathed for tens of thousands of years. When those bubbles burst, when air older than empires escapes into the present, is it not a voice from the past? A whisper across millennia? The question lingers as you walk deeper, listening with every step. Are these sounds merely accidents of physics, or are they something more? Echoes of those who came before, caught in crystalline prisons, trying still to be heard. The caves will not answer. They never do. They only whisper, and in their whispers, leave you to wonder. The deeper one goes, the stranger the whispers become. They are no longer scattered fragments of sound, but layered voices, overlapping, echoing in ways the ear cannot trace. A drip falls in one chamber, yet its echo returns not once but many times, bending, splitting, as if several mouths had spoken at once. You pause, straining to identify the source, but the sound has no single origin. It exists everywhere, surrounding you, pressing in like unseen hands. It is in such moments that the mind falters. You tell yourself it is nothing more than resonance, vibrations traveling through uneven corridors of ice. But doubt gnaws at certainty. What if the caves do not simply reflect sound, but shape it, bending echoes into semblances of voices? What if the whispers are not tricks of perception, but something intentional, language frozen into the ice itself, released one fragment at a time? Legends from the north speak of this possibility. They tell of glaciers that listen, glaciers that remember. Hunters once swore that their calls could linger in the ice long after they were gone, repeating faintly days later as if the walls themselves were mocking them. Some believe these echoes could even answer questions, though never directly. Riddles, half-truths, warnings disguised as echoes of one's own voice. Science offers its own explanation, and it too feels uncanny. Certain frequencies travel differently in frozen environments, Low sounds can reverberate endlessly, rolling through corridors like distant drums. High tones may fracture, producing harmonic distortions that resemble speech. Researchers have even documented cases where sounds appeared to double back, creating the eerie sensation of voices pursuing from behind. Natural, measurable phenomena. And yet, does that make them less unsettling? Imagine being alone in those tunnels, your lamp flickering, your body shivering, when suddenly the ice speaks back with your own voice. A whisper identical to yours, though delayed, warped, thinner, as though repeated by something that doesn't understand the shape of words. In that instant, you no longer trust the cave. You no longer trust yourself. It is this uncertainty that has given rise to superstition among explorers. Many refuse to speak aloud in the deeper chambers, fearing their words will be captured, repeated, and twisted into something they cannot control. Silence becomes both shield and burden. You carry your thoughts like secrets, afraid the ice might steal them, afraid the whispers might respond. But sometimes silence is not enough. Even when no words are spoken, the whispers persist. They rise in the dark with the sound of soft breathing, with murmurs just out of reach, with tones that almost form your name. And in those moments, fear sharpens into something deeper, the primal terror of being addressed by the unknown. For if the caves are truly speaking, then what is it they are trying to say? The Inuit believed some whispers were the voices of the dead, not ghosts in the way Western minds imagine, but echoes of lives returned to the earth, absorbed into the body of the glacier. To them, the ice was sacred, not silent but alive, a communion of all who had walked its surface before. Listening to the whispers was not a threat but a form of remembrance. Yet even they warned against venturing too deep, for there are voices better left unheard. Modern accounts echo that warning. More than one researcher has confessed to hearing whispers call them by name, though no living soul was present. Some described it as faint, like a memory. Others said it was clear, undeniable, as though someone stood right behind them. A few went further, insisting the whispers offered direction, urging them deeper into the ice, drawing them toward passages they had never noticed before. Most resisted. A handful did not. Not all of them returned. What unnerves most is the familiarity of these voices. They do not sound alien, but intimate, like a loved one, a friend, sometimes even the explorer's own voice reflected back. It is this closeness that makes the whispers unbearable. They are not the voices of strangers, but of those you trust. And in the emptiness of the cave, when you know such voices cannot exist, the effect is devastating. Still, the caves remain. The whispers continue. And for those who enter, the question persists. Are these voices nothing more than echoes, accidents of acoustics? Or are they truly messages, fragments of something vast, something patient, something waiting beneath the ice for the world to listen? There comes a point, deep in the labyrinth, when the whispers no longer feel like sound at all. They move beyond the ear, beyond the boundaries of hearing, and instead stir within the mind itself. A pressure, a presence, as though the very weight of the glacier presses against your thoughts, reshaping them, bending them towards something you do not want to understand. Explorers have described it in their journals, a sudden clarity that arrives like a voice inside the skull. Not quite speech, not quite thought, but something between. Some called it intuition, others called it madness. And yet the accounts share a similarity too precise to dismiss. The whispers, they wrote, did not only echo, they instructed, they urged, they compelled. It is difficult to imagine until you stand there, breath crystallizing in the air, light flickering across endless blue walls. You pause, and for a moment, silence reigns. Then, without warning, you feel it, an idea that is not your own, a phrase forming unbidden, a direction, a command. Go deeper. The words do not belong to you, yet they are inside you, as intimate as your heartbeat. And the deeper you listen, the more they multiply, a chorus swelling from nowhere and everywhere. Is it simply exhaustion, the brain unraveling under cold and darkness? Perhaps, but there is a chilling consistency to the testimonies of those who have walked these frozen halls. They all speak of being called further in, of being led toward passages no map recorded, of an irresistible pull, as though the ice itself hungered for them. Some turned back at the last moment, trembling, certain they had escaped something unspeakable. Others did not. Their names remain written in logs, their fates unknown. What lies in the depths that inspires such whispers? Theories abound. Some scientists suggest pockets of pressurized air, releasing frequencies that affect the mind, much like infrasound that unsettles animals. Others speculate on magnetic anomalies within the rock beneath, disrupting thoughts, causing hallucinations vivid enough to feel like voices. Explanations rooted in physics, in chemistry, in the mechanics of perception. And yet none account for the precision of the messages. None explain why the whispers always lead deeper. Perhaps the caves do not merely preserve the past. Perhaps they consume. What if the whispers are the voices of those already claimed, repeating endlessly, urging new souls to join them in the silent archives? What if the glacier, for all its beauty, is not just a monument of time, but a mouth, feeding slowly, patiently, luring with the promise of wonder until the wanderer is swallowed whole? It is a thought too dreadful to dwell upon, yet impossible to dismiss. For the ice is not empty. It is full of air, of memory, of the remnants of countless lives. Why should it not be full of voices too? Voices that linger, restless, seeking release. Voices that slip through cracks and shadows, desperate to be heard. Standing in that darkness, it becomes clear that whispers are not harmless. They are invitations. They are bait. And the deeper you descend, the stronger they become, until even silence feels like a lie, until even your own thoughts feel foreign. The cave ceases to be an environment and becomes a presence, vast and unfathomable, speaking without words, waiting without mercy. And when you finally turn back, if you turn back at all, the whispers do not stop. They follow. They cling to memory, to dreams. Long after you have left the ice behind, long after the cold has faded from your skin, you may still hear them. A faint call in the stillness of night. A murmur just beyond the threshold of sleep. A voice that says your name in a place where no one else should be. The Arctic caves are not silent. They never were. They are filled with whispers, with echoes, with voices the living were not meant to hear. And once you have listened, once the ice has found its way into your thoughts, it never truly lets you go. Long before explorers mapped the Arctic, before science traced the story of glaciers in ice cores and satellite images, the people of the North already knew these frozen lands held power. They did not speak of the ice in terms of data or geology, but in terms of spirit and memory. To them, the frost was alive, eternal, watching. And they shaped their lives around its presence with both reverence and fear. The Inuit tell of Sila, the spirit of the sky, the breath of the world, said to dwell within the winds and the ice itself. It was not a god in the way outsiders imagined, but a force vast and encompassing. When the air howled across the tundra, when frost formed intricate patterns on skin and stone, it was Silo reminding the people of its presence. To ignore it, to disrespect the frozen world, was to invite imbalance. Every hunt, every journey, every crossing into the deep white had to be done with humility, for Silo was always listening. There are tales, too, of beings said to live beneath the ice, shadows of those lost in blizzards, hunters who never returned, voices swallowed by glaciers. These were not simply ghosts, but guardians. They lingered in the frost, their whispers guiding or warning those who ventured too far. Some were benevolent, offering signs of safe passage, sudden breaks in storms, glimpses of prey when hunger grew desperate. Others were vengeful, leading the reckless astray, luring them deeper until the snow closed like a shroud and silence claimed them forever. Legends speak of one such spirit, feared above others, Agnok, the White Hunger, said to take the form of a towering figure draped in snow, faceless, moving soundlessly across the tundra. When storms raged without warning, when hunters vanished leaving no trace but a trail of half-buried footprints, it was whispered that Agnok had passed. The ice was its body, the wind its breath, and those who heard its voice rarely returned. Parents warned children never to follow strange calls in the snow, for Agnok lured with familiarity, mimicking the voices of loved ones until its prey was lost beyond saving. To outside ears, these tales may sound like myth, but to those who lived in the Arctic, they were as real as the cold that burned their skin. The legends were not simply stories. They were warnings, woven into survival itself. When a traveler hesitated at the mouth of an ice cave, when a hunter refused to chase prey too far into a storm, it was not fear alone that held them back, but memory of these ancient truths. The ice was alive, and it remembered. And so, the eternal frost was not merely endured, but honored. Offerings were left in snowdrifts, words of respect spoken before journeys. Fire was tended carefully, for it was believed flames angered the frost if left to burn wastefully. Even silence had ritual meaning. To remain quiet on certain crossings was to show deference, acknowledging that the land itself had ears. These customs may seem small, but in the face of a world so merciless, they were acts of balance, gestures of peace with a power far greater than man. Yet legends are not only warnings. Some speak of hidden sanctuaries deep within the glaciers, caverns of eternal light where the frost itself glowed with a purity untouched by time. To stumble upon such a place was a blessing, a sign that Scylla favored the traveler. There, it was said, one could see the world as it once was, before mankind walked upon it, a glimpse into the breath of creation itself. Few claim to have seen such sanctuaries, yet the belief endured, binding awe to fear, reverence to survival. It is easy, centuries later, to dismiss these legends as superstition. But even modern explorers, armed with technology and certainty, admit to moments that defy explanation. Voices in the ice that echo too clearly. Figures glimpsed in storms that vanish when pursued. Feelings of presence so strong they bring grown men to their knees. Whether born of myth or reality, the frost retains its legends as eternal as the glaciers themselves. For when you step into the Arctic, you are not walking into emptiness. You are entering a world already spoken for, a world alive with stories carved not in ink, but in snow and silence. And the legends, like the frost, endure. In the long winter nights, when the auroras danced across the sky like rivers of green fire, elders would gather their people close and speak of the frost. Their voices carried not just warnings, but memory, binding generations together with stories as fragile and enduring as the ice itself. For to them, legends were not entertainment, they were survival manuals, coded in myth so the lessons could never be forgotten. One of the most enduring tales is that of Kilak, the guardian of thresholds. She was said to dwell at the entrances of caves, her form hidden in the shimmer of frost patterns, her eyes glowing faintly in the dark. If travelers entered without respect, without pause, without acknowledging her presence, she would seal the path behind them. The unlucky would find their return blocked by sudden collapses of snow and stone, their way back erased as though it had never been. But those who whispered greetings, who bowed to the frost before stepping inside, were allowed to pass unharmed. To this day, many still murmur a word of respect before entering the mouth of a glacier, unsure whether Kilak is real, but unwilling to test fate. Another story tells of the Amarok, wolves of white ice who roamed the blizzards unseen. Their paws left no tracks, their breath mingled with the storm. To hear their howl was to know that the land itself was watching. Hunters said the America appeared when pride grew too strong, when men thought themselves greater than the wilderness. The wolves reminded them that survival was never conquest, but a fragile balance. Some claimed to have seen them at the edges of storms, shapes too large, too silent, watching with eyes that gleamed like stars before fading back into the snow. Perhaps the most haunting of all was the legend of the Niranat, the drowned ones. They were said to be travelers swallowed by sudden cracks in the ice, lost to the black waters below. But unlike ordinary deaths, the Niranat did not sink into silence. They remained suspended beneath the ice, visible when the moonlight struck at just the right angle, faces staring upward through frozen glass. Their voices became whispers in the wind, calling to the living, begging them to join. To hear them was a curse, for once their song reached you, the desire to follow into the cold depths grew unbearable. Parents warned children never to stop and listen when the wind seemed to sing, for it might be the Niranat, reaching through the frost with their sorrowful lullaby. What unites all these legends is not their strangeness, but their intimacy with the land. The people of the north did not see themselves apart from the frost, but within it, woven into its silence, its danger, its beauty. The ice was a force to be respected because it was alive with memory, and to ignore that memory was to risk more than death. It was to risk erasure, the kind that left no footprints, no trace, nothing but whispers fading into wind. And perhaps that is why these tales endure even now. For every modern account of explorers, hearing voices, seeing figures, feeling presences in the snow, echoes the old warnings. Skeptics call them hallucinations, products of isolation and exhaustion. Yet the parallels are undeniable. 1,000 years may separate the voices, but the story remains the same. The frost is listening. There are, too, stories of blessing, though rarer. Legends of those who honored the frost so deeply that they were spared in moments of certain death. A sudden shift in the storm, a seal surfacing in the ice when starvation loomed, a path opening when all seemed lost. These were seen as gifts, proof that respect for the eternal frost was not in vain. To live humbly, to listen, to walk lightly upon the snow, this was not weakness. It was wisdom. Even now, the line between superstition and truth blurs in the Arctic night. A scientist cataloging ice cores may not speak of Keelok, yet still feels compelled to touch the cave wall before entering, a quiet gesture of respect. A seasoned explorer may laugh at stories of the Niranat, yet still shivers when the wind carries a sound too close to a voice. Legends persist because the land insists upon them. They are not artifacts of the past, but living companions of the frost, whispering still to those who listen. And if you pause in the silence of the glacier, if you truly listen, who is to say what you will hear? The groan of shifting ice? Or the breath of something far older, watching from just beyond the edge of sight? The deeper one travels into the Arctic, the more the legends seem to breathe with life. What was once merely story begins to echo in the shifting corridors of ice. A flicker of light on a crystalline wall becomes a shape that seems to watch. A sudden draft carries what might be a whisper, or perhaps only the wind playing tricks. The line between myth and reality thins until it is nearly invisible, and the frost itself feels alive, patient, and eternal. Some explorers report moments that defy explanation entirely. They speak of shapes glimpsed at the edge of vision, figures cloaked in ice, moving without sound. Of patterns in frost that mimic the forms of animals or faces, vanishing the instant one attempts to focus. Others tell of hearing words, not echoes or infrasound, but coherent phrases, guidance, warning, or simply observation. All insist the ice is conscious, aware of intruders, responding not with malice, but with a deliberate indifference that humbles all who enter. And yet, amid the danger, there is awe. The legends are not simply stories of threat, but of wonder. They speak of the frost as a keeper of beauty, a curator of the ancient world. The glaciers preserve life in forms impossible elsewhere. Frozen forests, perfect insect wings, layers of snow that chronicle centuries of storms. Even the shadows carry memory, and to walk among them is to witness history not written in books, but captured in crystal. There is a strange reciprocity in these tales. The frost demands respect, yes, but it offers revelation in return. Those who tread lightly, who acknowledge the ice, are granted glimpses few humans will ever see. The northern lights flicker differently above such travelers, a subtle sign of approval or perhaps recognition. Paths through the ice appear that were previously hidden. Moments of clarity or insight arrive, as though the glacier itself whispers knowledge to those who pay heed. In the Arctic, respect is not just tradition, it is survival. And yet, the legends warn of overreach. To presume mastery over the frost is to court disaster. A single misstep, a single act of arrogance, and the glacier will remind you of its power. Stories abound of explorers lost to storms, of hunters swallowed by sudden ice cracks, of voices that called them further in than they intended, until the snow erased all traces of passage. The frost is eternal, and it does not forgive. Even now, as scientific instruments measure the ice with precision, as satellites map every ridge and crevasse, the old tales persist. Modern travelers leave offerings at the mouths of caves, speak quiet words of respect before venturing into the cold, pause when they hear the faintest whisper. The Arctic has not lost its legends, they have merely adapted. The frost remains the same, patient, eternal, watching, and waiting. And so the stories continue to bind generations together. The frost, though indifferent to human existence, shapes it nonetheless. The lessons endure: humility in the face of power, reverence for what cannot be controlled, and attentiveness to the whispers that may guide or warn. In this land of crystal and silence, legends are not merely entertainment. They are life itself, etched in ice, carried by the wind, eternal as the frost. For those who venture into these depths, it becomes clear: the Arctic does not simply exist. It remembers. It watches. And through the whispers, the movements, the frozen light, it tells its story, not to terrify, but to endure. Those who listen with humility may glimpse a world older and more profound than they ever imagined. Those who ignore it may vanish, leaving nothing but whispers behind. And as the night settles and the auroras ripple across the sky, one realizes the truth of the eternal frost. It is alive, it is patient, and it will never be tamed. It is legend. It is warning. It is history frozen, waiting for the world to heed its silent, enduring voice. There is a point in every journey through the Arctic where the surface ceases to matter. The endless white fields give way to deeper ice, corridors carved by millennia, chambers untouched by sun or wind. Here lies the heart of the glacier, not merely a location, but a presence. It is a place where time bends, where the frozen world seems to hold its breath, and where the past presses against the living with a weight almost tangible. The heart of the glacier is unlike any cave, any hollow explored before. The walls are thicker, more translucent, glowing faintly as though lit from within. Light behaves strangely here, bending, scattering, reflecting in ways that make the space feel infinite. Columns of ice rise like spires, intricate as cathedral architecture, shimmering with trapped bubbles that contain the memory of centuries. Each breath in this chamber is heavy, charged with the weight of history itself, as if the air has been waiting, compressed over millennia, to meet human lungs for the first time. Sound is different here. Drips echo not as singular notes, but as symphonies, reverberating across vast frozen halls. The groan of shifting ice feels closer, almost sentient, like the glacier itself is adjusting to your presence. Even the softest footfall becomes a dialogue, a conversation between traveler and the frozen world. Those who enter speak of a stillness that is not quiet, a pressure that is not physical, a sense of being observed not by eyes, but by memory. And yet, beauty is intertwined with unease. The glacier holds treasures older than human civilization, layers of ice that chronicle entire climates, fossils preserved in perfect detail, air bubbles that carry ancient atmospheres. Tiny fragments of life, suspended in crystal, wait patiently for discovery. Leaves, insects, even the delicate bones of creatures long extinct. To touch these is to lay hands upon history itself, to bridge a span of time measured in tens of thousands of years, to become momentarily intimate with the planet's own memory. Some explorers describe visions in these depths, not hallucinations born of cold or isolation, but flashes of the past encoded in ice. Forests frozen mid-growth, storms captured in layers of snow, animals preserved as if paused in motion. The heart of the glacier is a living archive, a cathedral of frozen time, and those who walk within it feel the weight of all that has been. Every movement becomes reverent, every step measured, for the space demands awareness. To stumble here is not simply physical misstep. It is a violation of memory itself. There is also a profound silence in parts of the heart. Not absence of sound, but absence of distraction. Here the glacier speaks in subtle ways. The shimmer of a crystal wall, the faint pulse of a deep groan, the temperature of the air shifting with the flow of hidden currents. Every element conveys meaning. The ice communicates, but not in words, in sensation, in rhythm, in pattern. To understand it requires patience, humility, and listening beyond hearing. And beneath this majesty lies a hidden danger. Pressure builds slowly, imperceptibly. Cracks open with terrifying suddenness. Ice can shift with the power of tectonic force. The same chambers that hold wonder also hold risk. Many who have ventured here unprepared have found themselves trapped, lost, or worse, claimed by the ice in ways that leave no trace but a story whispered to others. The glacier is generous only to those who respect it. To others, it is merciless. Even the light plays tricks. Rays filter through walls, scattering into illusions of movement. Shapes appear where none exist. Shadows twist like living things. Explorers swear they have glimpsed forms, figures draped in frost, wings of creatures long extinct, the fleeting outline of something unidentifiable. The heart of the glacier is a place of revelation, and yet it keeps its greatest secrets just out of reach, teasing the imagination, testing the courage of those who dare to enter. And as one moves closer to the center, to the pulse of the ice itself, the sensation of presence grows stronger. It is not merely cold, not merely still. It is alive with the memory of millennia, aware, patient, waiting. To reach the heart is to stand at the threshold of the glacier's soul, to confront time, memory, and the essence of the frozen world in one moment, one breath, one heartbeat. Deeper still, the ice begins to thicken and shift in ways that defy expectation. Walls curve inward, narrowing the path into passages that feel alive, pressing against your shoulders, shaping themselves around your body. It is as if the glacier remembers each traveler, adjusting to test your resolve, your humility, your courage. Every step becomes deliberate. Every breath is measured against the weight of the world encased in frozen crystal. The heart of the glacier holds its secrets with astonishing patience. Tiny fractures in the ice reveal veins of trapped air, snapshots of atmospheres long vanished. Scientists who have pierced these bubbles speak of inhaling centuries, of tasting air untouched by modern time. Each breath is a communion with the past, the frost itself teaching the visitor patience, reverence, and the fragile value of life. To inhale here is to become part of history, if only for a fleeting instant. And then there are the chambers where light transforms into art. Sunlight from above fractures into prisms, scattering through the walls in a kaleidoscope of colors. Shadows stretch and twist, forming shapes both familiar and impossible. The faint outline of wings, the curve of a long-extinct creature, even the semblance of human figures frozen in a silent tableau. These visions are ephemeral, vanishing if observed too directly, leaving only wonder and an unsettling sense of being watched. Amidst this beauty lurks an undeniable tension. Ice groans under its own weight, cracks open with deafening suddenness, and the cold is unrelenting, seeping into bones, numbing reflexes. Even the most experienced explorers acknowledge that the glacier is a force beyond human control. It is patient, indifferent, eternal, and yet, for those who enter with respect, it offers glimpses of truths that no other environment can. Some report seeing forms that are not of this time, shapes that glide across the periphery of vision, too swift, too precise, disappearing when confronted directly. Are these hallucinations born of isolation, exhaustion, and hypothermia? Perhaps. Yet the consistency of reports across generations, across cultures, across centuries of exploration suggests something more. The glacier may preserve not just the past of the Earth, but echoes of all who have walked its frozen halls. Memories embedded in ice, replayed for the living in fragments too subtle to fully comprehend. It is here, at the glacier's core, that the silence is thickest. Not merely the absence of sound, but a silence that presses against thought itself. It is a presence, a consciousness without form. Explorers speak of a sensation of being studied, evaluated, measured. Not malevolent, not benign, simply aware. And in that awareness, the glacier tests each visitor. Their patience, their humility, their reverence for life and time. To proceed recklessly is to risk everything. To proceed carefully is to witness wonders that defy explanation. Beneath the weight of millennia, beneath layers of snow, ice, and memory, the glacier contains stories that may never be fully told. Each fissure, each frozen bubble, each reflected light carries information, records of storms, eruptions, extinctions, and survival. To navigate the heart of the glacier is to read these pages with the body, the senses, and the spirit. Every step is a line of poetry, every breath a chapter in the ongoing history of the frozen world. And as one reaches the very center, a chamber so vast it feels infinite, the realization becomes clear. The heart of the glacier is not simply ice. It is memory. It is patience. It is a living archive of the Earth's past and the lives it has held. To stand there is to confront the passage of time in its purest form, to measure human existence against millennia, and to feel both insignificance and connection at once. Every story, every legend, every whisper encountered along the journey converges here. The heart of the glacier is the culmination of all that has come before, a place where beauty and danger, history and memory, silence and whisper, merge into a single, overwhelming presence. At the very center, the glacier reveals its most intimate truths. The ice here is unlike any surface experienced before, clear as glass, yet impossibly deep, stretching into darkness beyond the reach of light. Every layer is a story, every bubble a fragment of time. The air tastes older here, carrying a subtle tongue of earth long buried, and with every breath, the body feels the weight of centuries. To stand in this chamber is to feel both infinitesimal and eternal at once. Here, the whispers converge. Not the scattered echoes of outer corridors, but a resonance that seems to vibrate through the very bones. Some describe it as the glacier speaking, not in words but in understanding, a communication older than language, older than human consciousness. Thoughts emerge unbidden, not entirely one's own, as if the glacier shares its memory directly with those who are willing to listen. These are not messages of warning, nor of guidance. They are the essence of what the ice has kept. Time itself, preserved, patient, unyielding. The walls glimmer with fossils, plant fragments, and insects, suspended as if in suspended animation. They are reminders that life and death are intertwined, fleeting, and eternal. Mammoths, cave creatures, birds, all exist here still, locked in the crystalline grasp of time. Their presence is haunting, a testament to survival and fragility, a mirror to humanity's own fleeting existence. One cannot touch without awe, cannot breathe without reverence, cannot move without humility. And yet, the heart of the glacier is not static. Ice groans and shifts imperceptibly, a subtle reminder that even eternity is in motion. Cracks open silently, channels of water flow unseen, currents of ancient energy course beneath the surface. It is alive in a way that defies human understanding. Patient, deliberate, immortal. To move carelessly here is to risk injury, or worse, to disrespect the memory it preserves. The glacier tolerates nothing without reason, rewarding reverence with glimpses of unparalleled beauty, punishing hubris with silence too absolute to endure. Some explorers report visions here, flashes of the past replayed in light and shadow, ghosts of those who walked these halls long before. Sometimes it is a human figure, curled in quiet repose beneath layers of ice. Other times, the vision is of creatures extinct yet preserved in motion, frozen mid-leap or mid-flight, caught forever in crystalline stasis. These visions are fleeting, ephemeral, yet their impression lingers long after leaving the chamber, leaving the mind grasping at understanding, the heart heavy with awe. And as the final realization settles, one sees the glacier not as a landscape, but as a living chronicle. Every ripple, every fissure, every whisper carries a memory. Every chamber preserves the passage of time with the precision of a master archivist. To exist within its heart is to confront the fragility of human life, the grandeur of the natural world, and the persistence of memory across millennia. One feels both minuscule and connected, a fleeting presence in a continuum that stretches beyond imagination. The journey back is a reversal not merely of space, but of perspective. The ice that once loomed as vast and alien now feels intimate, familiar, a friend and teacher. Each step retraces stories told in silence, echoes of whispers that have imprinted upon the mind. The light of the surface, once distant, becomes a beacon of survival and return, yet one carries with it the gravity of what has been witnessed. The glacier's heart leaves an indelible mark, a lesson in patience, respect, and the enduring power of nature's memory. Finally, emerging into the open air, one understands the profound truth of the Arctic. Its beauty is inseparable from its danger, its mystery inseparable from its knowledge. The glacier does not yield its secrets easily, yet it does not withhold them entirely. Those who enter with reverence leave with more than memories. They leave with understanding, a connection to time and life that few humans ever experience. And beneath it all, in the cold and stillness, the heart of the glacier continues to beat, eternal, patient, whispering its story to those who dare to listen. Even after leaving the heart of the glacier, the Arctic does not release its grip. The ice continues to echo in memory, in thought, in the very rhythm of breathing. These echoes are not mere reflections of sound. They are imprints of history, layers of the world's memory vibrating through the frozen expanse. The air itself carries them, faint yet persistent, weaving past and present into a living tapestry of frost and silence. To venture outward from the inner chambers is to move into a different kind of stillness. Here, the glacier's pulse is subtler, measured not in groans or whispers, but in the quiet persistence of time itself. The snowfields stretch endlessly, smooth and unbroken, masking the rivers of ice that flow invisibly beneath. Each step is a negotiation with the unknown, a careful placement into terrain that has changed imperceptibly over centuries, yet holds the power to consume in an instant. The echoes of the frozen world are more than sound. They are presence. In some chambers, the ice refracts light in ways that suggest movement, shadows that flicker like memories of what once lived. Tiny particles trapped in crystal catch the faintest illumination and seem to shimmer with life. An insect preserved for tens of thousands of years appears to twitch under the lamp's beam. Fossilized plants release hints of seasons long past, reminding the observer that the Arctic is a library written not on paper, but in crystal, snow, and trapped air. And then there are the human echoes. Footprints, artifacts, remnants of explorers and indigenous travelers, all preserved with astonishing fidelity. A sled runner half buried in ice. A glove, cracked and frozen. Tiny inscriptions scratched into the wall centuries ago. These traces form a dialogue across time, connecting present to past, observer to observed. To encounter them is to feel the weight of every step taken before, to hear whispers that transcend voice and become memory itself. The wind carries its own stories. When storms sweep across the plains, it sings through fissures, creating tones that resonate like faint bells or muted chords. Some insist these are natural harmonics, the result of pressure and ice formation. Yet in moments of profound stillness, the wind seems almost purposeful, a guide, a message, a voice reaching across centuries. Explorers have felt it in the marrow of their bones, a vibration that is at once physical and spiritual, urging caution, reverence, and awareness. Time moves differently here. A single hour can feel like days, and days like centuries. The glacier teaches patience through its silence, humility through its enormity. Every sound, every glimmer of light, every subtle shift of air carries meaning for those willing to perceive it. The echoes are lessons, reminders that the world existed long before humans and will endure long after. In the Arctic, life and memory are inseparable, frozen yet alive, delicate yet eternal. To hear these echoes is to confront the essence of the frozen world. They are not threats, nor are they invitations. They are evidence, evidence that the world has a memory, a presence, and a persistence that defies human understanding. Every sound, every reflection, every frozen fragment reminds the visitor that the Arctic is not passive. It watches, it records, it endures. The deeper you move into the Arctic expanse, the more tangible these echoes become. They gather not just in the air, but in the ice itself, vibrating through crystal walls and frozen corridors, reverberating beneath the snowfields. Each step, each breath, each heartbeat seems magnified, absorbed, and returned with subtle nuance. The frozen world does not merely exist. It interacts, layering every intrusion with memory and presence. In certain chambers, the ice itself seems to pulse with the stories of the ages. Trapped bubbles of ancient air, once the atmosphere of a world long forgotten, release minute vibrations that brush against the consciousness of the observer. Some report hearing indistinct whispers, the faint hum of life as it was tens of thousands of years ago, voices of creatures, winds of prehistoric storms, the unbroken rhythm of the planet itself. What is heard may be subtle, but it lingers, leaving impressions that cannot be erased. Humanity's own history adds another layer. Tools left behind by early explorers, inscriptions etched into walls, or simply the pathways carved across snowfields, all are absorbed and echoed back by the glacier. There is a haunting duality here. Each trace of human existence is preserved, yet also reminded of its transience. In the Arctic, presence and absence are inseparable. One cannot stand long without sensing the countless lives that have passed through, vanished, and become part of the frozen memory. The echoes are not passive. They are shaped by movement, by observation, by thought. A careless step may send a shiver through an ice wall that reverberates like distant thunder. A word spoken aloud may return subtly warped, as if the glacier itself is listening and answering in its own language. This is no ordinary landscape. It is an archive, a cathedral, a living repository. Time does not merely flow here. It accumulates, coils, and folds back upon itself, visible in layers of frost, in trapped air, in the crystalline reflections of light. Some explorers have described moments of profound clarity here when the echoes seem to align. A whisper from one end of a cavern mirrors a memory. A shadow forms a pattern from another age. The glimmer of light hints at a sequence of events long past. These moments are fleeting, often imperceptible to casual observers, but they are powerful. They suggest that the Arctic is not random, not inert, but deliberate. A teacher of patience, a keeper of knowledge, and a reminder of humanity's fragile place within time. And yet, with beauty comes danger. The echoes can mislead as easily as they instruct. Sound bounces, air shifts, light refracts unpredictably. Paths seem clear until they collapse. Shadows appear where none should exist, and unseen currents of ice or wind challenge navigation. Those who venture without respect or awareness risk losing themselves, drawn by the subtle pull of memory and reflection, wandering into areas the glacier will not relinquish. The Arctic is patient, but it is not forgiving. To stand amidst these echoes is to experience both awe and humility. The frozen world speaks, not in human language, but in forms older and more enduring than humanity itself. Every reflection of light, every vibration of air, every murmur of trapped ice carries meaning. To ignore it is to walk blindly. To listen is to touch a truth that transcends time, a story told not by words, but by the pulse of the planet. The Arctic teaches one lesson above all, that memory and history are not confined to human records. They exist in ice, in air, in the resonance of the frozen world. To hear them, to perceive them, is to be part of something far larger than oneself, a continuum of life, death, and endurance that stretches across millennia. Here, echoes are not merely sounds. They are proof that the world has a soul, patient, eternal, and whispering still. As the journey reaches the glacier's outer limits, the echoes begin to weave into a chorus, subtle yet undeniable. The ice, the snow, the wind, all participate in a symphony of memory. Each sound, each vibration, carries a fragment of the past, reverberating across time and space. It is as if the Arctic itself remembers every storm, every traveler, every heartbeat that has touched its frozen expanse. Walking through these outer corridors, explorers often pause to notice small details that speak volumes. A fissure that mirrors the shape of a long-extinct creature. A glint of sunlight that strikes a crystal wall at the perfect angle, casting patterns that resemble human footprints from centuries ago. A whisper in the wind that seems to carry a question, a warning, or a simple acknowledgement of presence. The echoes are alive, not conscious in a human sense, yet remarkably perceptive, responding to curiosity, caution, or carelessness alike. Even in the open expanse, where snow stretches uninterrupted to the horizon, the echoes persist. They ride the wind, invisible and intangible, yet impossible to ignore. The faint hum of shifting ice, the distant crack of pressure released from hidden crevasses, the subtle vibration underfoot, all remind the traveler that the frozen world is not passive. It is awake, patient, and eternally observant. Each moment spent here is a conversation with time itself, a dialogue conducted in a language older than any human tongue. The Arctic's memory is not static. It moves, shifts, and adapts, preserving some histories while letting others fade. Footprints may vanish within hours, yet echoes of human presence remain encoded in ice, trapped in layers that endure for centuries. The wind carries fragments of past journeys, mixing them with new arrivals, creating a continuous layering of experience. Every traveler becomes part of this ongoing record, leaving behind an invisible signature for those who follow. Amid these echoes, there's also profound solitude. The frozen world offers a mirror to the self, reflecting not only the external landscape, but the internal one. Thoughts sharpen, senses heighten, and even the faintest sound or movement is imbued with meaning. To walk here is to confront both nature and one's own place within it, to measure life against the patient endurance of glaciers, to recognize the brevity of human existence in contrast to time etched in ice. And yet, the echoes are not only reminders of mortality, they are proof of continuity. Life persists, memory endures, and the world's story unfolds with or without human observation. Every subtle vibration in the ice, every whisper carried by the wind, every faint glimmer of frozen light is a testament to the resilience and permanence of the natural world. To witness it is both humbling and transcendent, a rare glimpse into a continuum far beyond ordinary comprehension. Finally, as the sun dips below the horizon and the auroras begin their dance across the Arctic sky, the echoes seem to gather, rising in harmony with the frozen landscape. It is a moment of profound unity, past, present, and future intertwined in crystal and snow. The glacier has shared its memory, its voice, its song, leaving an imprint on the observer that will never fade. One cannot truly leave the Arctic unchanged. The echoes follow, subtle and persistent, whispering in dreams, in silence, in memory. To stand here is to understand the essence of the frozen world, that it is alive with history, vibrant with memory, and patient beyond imagination. The echoes are eternal, as enduring as the ice itself, waiting for those who will listen, for those who will respect, for those who will remember. And in their presence, one cannot help but feel both infinitesimal and infinitely connected, a fleeting note within the unending symphony of the frozen world. Beneath the frozen surface of the Arctic lies a hidden world, a labyrinth of ice and shadow that few have ever seen. It is a place untouched by sunlight, untouched by wind, untouched by human understanding. The air here carries a chill older than memory, thick with silence, yet pulsing with a quiet energy, as if the glacier itself is aware of your presence. Every step is a negotiation with history, every breath a conversation with time. These hidden corridors are more than physical spaces. They are archives of existence, storing fragments of life long vanished, moments frozen mid-motion, preserved in perfect crystalline detail. A leaf, snapped from a tree centuries ago, drifts suspended in a bubble of ice. A tiny insect, trapped mid-flight, becomes a monument to survival and fragility. And if one listens closely, the frost seems to hum with the echoes of all it has witnessed. Storms, migrations, footsteps, the whispers of explorers long gone. The walls are a kaleidoscope of frozen light. Sunlight refracted through translucent ice produces colors impossible to name, greens that seem to shimmer with life, blues so deep they appear to swallow the eye, whites that burn like purity itself. The formations shift imperceptibly, responding to changes in temperature, pressure, even the proximity of a human observer. To navigate these passages is to engage in a silent dialogue, moving with care, curiosity, and reverence. And yet, for all their beauty, the ice corridors are dangerous. Cracks can open without warning, revealing chasms that descend into darkness beyond comprehension. Pressure builds silently over centuries, threatening to collapse entire chambers with a force beyond human strength. It is a world that demands respect. One misstep can transform wonder into tragedy. Those who ignore its rhythms rarely leave untouched. Those who honor them find themselves granted visions few could imagine. Stories passed down by the few who have ventured into these secret chambers speak of phenomena that defy explanation. Shadows that move independently of light, faint whispers carried through walls, the sensation of being observed not by eyes, but by memory itself. These are not hallucinations born of isolation. They are interactions with the glacier, subtle yet unmistakable, demonstrating that the frozen world is alive, conscious in ways humans barely comprehend. It is here, in the hidden veins beneath the surface, that the Arctic reveals its most intimate truths. Layers of ice carry the history of the planet: volcanoes, storms, the rise and fall of entire ecosystems, preserved in a frozen archive. To touch, it is to touch time itself, to feel the weight of centuries pressing gently against the skin. Every discovery, no matter how small, is a revelation, evidence of the vast, patient narrative that the world has inscribed in crystal. The secrets beneath the ice are not merely physical. They are metaphysical, spiritual, and profoundly humbling. Those who venture here are forced to confront their own impermanence, to recognize that human life is but a fleeting pulse in the continuum of frozen memory. And yet, within this recognition lies beauty, the awareness that one's presence, however brief, becomes part of the glacier's story, another echo woven into its eternal fabric. Here, in the cold and silence, the Arctic teaches the most difficult lesson of all, that some truths cannot be forced, only discovered patiently, humbly, and with reverence. The secrets beneath the ice are both a warning and an invitation, a reminder that the world endures, remembers, and waits for those willing to listen. Deeper into the hidden labyrinth, the ice begins to change. It grows thicker, clearer, almost liquid in its translucence, revealing layers upon layers of history frozen in crystalline detail. Light behaves strangely here, bending and scattering, creating illusions of movement where none exists. Shadows stretch unnaturally, twisting into shapes that seem alive for a moment before dissolving into nothing. Each step is measured, each breath cautious, for even the smallest disturbance can awaken the glacier's latent power. Within these corridors lie relics of worlds long vanished. Tiny fossils embedded in ice tell stories of ecosystems that existed before humans ever walked the earth. Trapped pollen hints at forests that no longer exist. Insects frozen mid-flight as if caught by the hand of time itself. Every fragment is a reminder that life persists, even when invisible, and that the glacier is both a keeper and a witness of that persistence. Those who study these hidden treasures often describe an overwhelming sense of connection, a dialogue not of words, but of memory and presence. Some of the most extraordinary secrets are the impressions left by ancient travelers, long before modern explorers arrived. Footprints, sled tracks, and even crude carvings are preserved in layers of ice, hidden from view until one happens upon them in the labyrinth. These traces carry stories without words, hints of survival, determination, and resilience. They are echoes of human presence, frozen yet alive, and they remind every new visitor that those who came before were not so different in their wonder and respect for the Arctic. The glacier itself seems to respond to awareness. Explorers report subtle shifts in temperature, microvibrations, and light patterns that follow movement. Sometimes, in the silence of the deepest chambers, it feels as though the ice is watching, not with malice, but with quiet curiosity, testing patience and reverence. To move recklessly is to risk collapse or disorientation. To move mindfully is to witness beauty otherwise invisible. The glacier's consciousness is not sentient in a human sense, yet it communicates through its reactions, its textures, and its light, teaching those who listen how to navigate both the labyrinth and their own inner perceptions. And yet, danger is ever present. Cracks can appear without warning, sending echoes reverberating through endless chambers. Pressure can release suddenly, and frozen waterfalls may collapse with catastrophic force. The hidden corridors do not forgive ignorance. Only careful observation and respect ensure survival. And even then, the glacier tests all who enter. Those who emerge speak not of conquest, but of humility, of awe, of a profound understanding that this world is larger and older than any human endeavor. Even in these treacherous passages, the Arctic offers moments of sublime wonder. Reflections of light fracture into dazzling prisms across ice walls, revealing forms that suggest wings, faces, or creatures lost to time. Bubbles of ancient air catch illumination, glowing faintly as though imbued with their own vitality. Every visual detail feels intentional, a message or a memory waiting to be perceived. It is as if the glacier itself is curating a gallery of history, offering glimpses of truths too vast for words, leaving the mind to comprehend in silence and reflection. In these moments, the secrets beneath the ice are revealed not through explanation, but through experience. They teach patience, observation, and the necessity of reverence. The labyrinth is a living archive, a cathedral of time, a silent teacher. Each step taken here is an entry in a dialogue spanning centuries, a conversation between human curiosity and the glacier's eternal memory. And for those willing to listen, the rewards are profound. Understanding, connection, and a glimpse of truths hidden from the world above. At the deepest reaches of the labyrinth, the glacier reveals its most intimate secrets. Here, the ice is no longer just a surface to navigate, but a medium that preserves and communicates. Layers upon layers of frozen history fold over one another, capturing storms, migrations, and life forms in intricate detail. The walls shimmer with an almost liquid translucence, refracting light into kaleidoscopic patterns that defy comprehension. Each shimmer, each pulse of illumination, feels deliberate, as if the ice is guiding the traveler toward its hidden truths. Some explorers describe visions in these depths, fleeting glimpses of life frozen mid-moment, shadows that echo actions from centuries past. A mammoth raising its trunk, a bird frozen mid-flight, a human hand reaching outward, all suspended in time yet alive in presence. These are not hallucinations, but fragments of memory preserved in crystal, offered to those who approach with reverence and care. To witness them is to feel both awe and humility, a recognition of the fragility of life against the persistence of time. The air itself carries history. Trapped bubbles release traces of atmospheres from millennia ago, faint scents of forests long vanished, hints of storms that reshaped the land, and whispers of creatures that no longer exist. Breathing here is an act of communion, inhaling the essence of the planet's past. Each inhalation binds the traveler to the frozen memory of the Arctic, creating a fleeting yet profound connection across time. Yet even here, danger is ever present. Shifts in ice, sudden collapses, and hidden crevasses remind all who enter that reverence alone cannot remove risk. The glacier tolerates only respect and mindfulness. Those who ignore the rhythms of its heart may vanish without a trace, absorbed into the very memory they sought to explore. The secrets beneath the ice are both a gift and a warning, lessons etched into crystal for those willing to perceive, consequences for those who are careless. And still, the glacier offers moments of transcendence. Light fractures through the walls in impossible patterns. Shadows twist into ethereal forms, and subtle vibrations resonate through the soles of boots, as if the ice itself is speaking. These are the whispers of memory, fragments of life, echoes of storms, reflections of all who have passed through. In these moments, the Arctic ceases to be merely a landscape. It becomes a living archive, a cathedral, and a storyteller. Emerging from the labyrinth is like awakening from a dream. The frozen corridors, the crystalline chambers, the preserved history, all fade into memory, yet their impact lingers. The traveler leaves with more than knowledge. They carry understanding, connection, and an indelible respect for a world older and wiser than any human mind can fully grasp. The secrets beneath the ice do not vanish. They endure, encoded in crystal, whispered on the wind, waiting for the next careful observer to listen. To stand at the edge of the labyrinth, looking back one final time, is to confront the vastness of time and the patience of nature. Every ripple in the ice, every trapped bubble, every shimmer of light is a story waiting to be understood. And in that understanding lies a truth the Arctic has held for millennia. The world remembers, it preserves, and it waits, patient, eternal, and silent, for those who are willing to see, to hear, and to respect. The Arctic does not yield its deepest truths easily. Beyond the familiar ice corridors and crystalline chambers lies a domain so remote, so untouched, that even seasoned explorers tread cautiously. Here, the frozen labyrinth twists into passages unseen, chambers untouched, and caverns that echo with the memory of millennia. The air carries a weight that is almost tangible, thick with cold and silence, but resonating with the stories of the planet itself. Every step forward is deliberate. The ice underfoot glints with hidden layers, revealing fragments of life and climate long vanished. Tiny fossils glimmer in translucent walls, traces of forests, storms, and creatures preserved as if the glacier had paused time itself. The deeper the labyrinth stretches, the more these relics reveal patterns, a silent language carved by nature, a narrative of survival, adaptation, and endurance. The walls themselves seem alive, pulsating subtly with the pressure of centuries, as though the glacier breathes slowly, deliberately, waiting to see who dares to continue. Light here is both friend and illusion. Sunlight that penetrates from above fractures into shards, casting patterns that seem to shift and move. Shadows appear to crawl along walls, creating fleeting images of creatures long extinct, of explorers who never returned, or of forms the mind cannot name. These are visions, yes, but they are more than hallucinations. They are echoes of memory, impressions of a world that existed long before humans charted maps, recorded data, or even dreamed of discovery. Danger is inseparable from wonder. The labyrinth is patient but unforgiving. Hidden fissures and pressure cracks test every footstep, reminding explorers that the glacier does not bend to human will. The frozen passages may collapse without warning, sending echoes through chambers far beyond the immediate vicinity. It is a world where beauty and peril coexist, inseparable and eternal, demanding respect and mindfulness at every turn. Even the sound carries lessons. Drips from ice ceilings, distant groans of shifting glaciers, and subtle vibrations beneath boots resonate through the frozen halls. These are not merely echoes. They are communications, subtle signals of change, warnings, or perhaps even guidance. The labyrinth itself seems aware, shaping experience through its response to human movement, revealing secrets only to those who move with patience and humility. At the core of this labyrinth, the frozen walls begin to reveal their most extraordinary treasures. Layers of ice that contain snapshots of entire climates, air pockets holding ancient atmospheres, and crystal formations that refract light into colors unseen in the modern world. Every detail is a story, every shimmer a fragment of memory, preserved with precision that no human hand could match. Here, one senses not only the scale of time, but also the persistence of the planet, its patient endurance, and its silent observation of all who pass through. The deeper chambers hold the most intimate secrets of the Arctic. Creatures that vanished thousands of years ago, fossilized plants, and the remnants of early human travelers are suspended in frozen time. These fragments are not merely objects. They are evidence of life, continuity, and the delicate balance that the frozen world has maintained through eons. To witness them is to experience the passage of time in its purest, most tangible form, and to recognize humanity's fleeting presence against the glacier's eternal persistence. Deeper into the labyrinth, the ice begins to take on an almost surreal quality. Walls stretch like frozen waves, curving and folding into impossible shapes. Light refracts through the translucent crystal, scattering into patterns that seem alive, shifting, breathing, and beckoning the observer forward. Every shadow hints at a story, every shimmer conceals a secret, and every crack carries centuries of memory waiting to be understood. Some of the most astonishing features are the pockets of ancient air trapped within the ice. Each bubble is a relic, a time capsule preserving the atmosphere of a world long vanished. Inhaling these fragments is a communion with the past, a silent conversation with climates, storms, and life that existed millennia before humans set foot on the frozen expanse. Explorers often describe a profound sense of connection, a feeling that for a brief moment, they are part of a continuum stretching far beyond human comprehension. The labyrinth preserves more than natural history. It carries traces of humanity's earliest encounters with the Arctic. Footprints of unknown travelers, crude markings on icy walls, and discarded tools frozen into the glacier all testify to courage, survival, and curiosity. These imprints are whispers from the past, inviting the present to recognize the fragility of life and the endurance of memory. Each trace is a reminder that humans are fleeting, yet capable of leaving echoes that persist across centuries. Yet even amidst this wonder, danger looms. The ice responds to movement, pressure, and sound with subtle but inevitable consequences. Tiny fractures can widen suddenly, hidden crevices may gape without warning, and unseen currents of ice can shift, threatening collapse. The frozen labyrinth demands attention, respect, and humility. Every explorer learns quickly that arrogance or carelessness has no place here. Survival depends not on strength alone, but on awareness, patience, and harmony with the frozen world. The labyrinth also seems to possess a consciousness, not in the human sense, but as an extension of memory itself. Explorers report subtle vibrations beneath their feet, micro-changes in light, and a sense of presence, as though the glacier watches and evaluates. To those who move with reverence, it reveals wonders, glimmers of ancient life, patterns in the ice that tell stories, and chambers that seem to hold memories more vividly than any library or archive could. To those who move recklessly, it offers nothing but danger, teaching respect in the only way it knows how. And within these depths lie the most profound lessons. The ice preserves continuity, patience, and the endurance of life across millennia. Each chamber is a chronicle, each fracture a record of events, and each reflection of light a message from the past. It teaches that beauty and peril coexist, that memory persists beyond human lifespans, and that understanding comes not through force, but through careful observation, humility, and presence. As the explorer moves closer to the labyrinth's ultimate reaches, the sense of scale becomes overwhelming. The frozen world stretches infinitely in every direction, yet each detail is meticulous, precise, and meaningful. Crystalline formations refract light into shapes that suggest wings, faces, or creatures long gone, shimmering like ghosts suspended in time. To witness them is to experience the fusion of art, history, and life, all preserved within ice that is at once fragile and eternal. The secrets of the frozen labyrinth are revealed slowly, in whispers, in reflections, and in the subtle pulse of the glacier itself. They are a testament to the endurance of memory, the persistence of the natural world, and the delicate balance between wonder and danger. Here, the past and present converge, leaving the observer humbled, enlightened, and forever changed. At the furthest reaches of the labyrinth, the ice reaches a sublime clarity, revealing layers upon layers of frozen time. Each wall is a mosaic of history, capturing storms, volcanic eruptions, and life forms with astonishing precision. Light filters through these crystalline surfaces, scattering into an ethereal glow that seems to animate the ice itself. Shadows flicker and shift, suggesting forms that might have once walked, flown, or crawled across the earth, leaving behind only impressions now immortalized in frost. The deepest chambers hold pockets of air and water that predate human memory. Each trapped bubble, each frozen droplet, contains a record of the Arctic's past, a whisper of the climate, the flora, the fauna, and even the unseen forces that shaped the land. Breathing in this air is an act of communion, a direct connection to the Earth's history, spanning millennia. Explorers often describe a sense of vertigo, as if standing simultaneously in the present and the distant past, witnessing life in a frozen tableau that no living observer could have imagined. Human presence here is fleeting, yet the glacier absorbs it into its memory. Footprints, tools, and faint markings left by previous explorers become part of the ice, preserved for future generations. This duality, the transience of life against the permanence of the glacier, creates a profound sense of humility. Visitors realize that they are only momentary participants in a narrative that has unfolded over countless centuries. The labyrinth teaches patience, reverence, and an understanding of one's place within the vast continuum of time. Finally, as the explorer retraces the labyrinth's twisting paths toward the surface, a profound realization emerges. The frozen world is not a static landscape. It is a living archive, a storyteller, and a guardian. Its secrets, though hidden, are patiently waiting for those willing to observe, to listen, and to understand. The ice teaches that time is eternal, memory is preserved, and life, however fleeting, leaves an imprint that endures. Emerging into the open Arctic light, one carries the weight of these revelations. The labyrinth's secrets do not vanish. They remain in memory, echoing in footsteps, breaths, and reflections long after the journey ends. The frozen world has imparted its final lessons: patience, reverence, humility, and awe. And as the wind stirs the surface, scattering ice and snow across the tundra, it whispers quietly, a reminder that the Arctic story is endless, its memory eternal, and its secrets never fully revealed, only experienced.